As I sit on the couch in my living room, I know that the news I am about to receive from my mom is going to be difficult for me to cope with. My sister sits right next to me, and we both somewhat know of what we're about to hear. The feeling of having your heart drop is definitely a painful and devastating feeling. But the tough little fifth grader I think I am, I believe that crying is embarrassing and not very manly. For a while, I'm able to keep all my emotions tucked away until my mom starts crying. This is the moment at which I can't really contain them anymore. Losing a pet that you've grown up with your entire life is a difficult situation for a 10-year-old to understand. Up until this point, I'd never known the feeling of losing someone or something with a great significance to me. As a kid, I just assumed that my dog would somehow just be around forever. The thought of him passing away had never crossed my mind in any way. This was what made it exceptionally hard for me. My parents had gotten their dog before they adopted me and my sister. His original name was Drew, and he came from another family that could not house him anymore because their cat would always scratch him up. Although his real name was Drew, we would call him Bubba. I am not entirely sure how this nickname came into existence, but it's a nickname that I believe suited him very well. He was a very kind and intelligent dog, and was definitely a likable dog. When I first came as a little baby to the United States, my parents were unsure of how Drew would react to my arrival. Fortunately, being the good dog he was, we quickly became good friends and enjoyed each other's company. I do not have much recollection of any moments I might have had with Drew when I was really young. The most vivid memories I have of him are ones that occurred after my sister was adopted. Remembering these moments is like a special trip down memory lane for me. I run around the house with my sister, sneaking around corners and making sure we are not seen. All of a sudden, we see Drew turn one of the corners, and we quickly run up the stairs to avoid him. In this game, we must avoid him because he's the dangerous monster and is out to get us. Sometimes running into our mom or dad, they will ask us what we are doing, to which we quickly explain and get a laugh out of them. Drew is always a good sport as well, buying into our silly little game and playing along. Something that Drew always did was he would walk into our bedrooms at night, right before my sister and I would go to sleep. It was almost as like he was checking to see if we were alright. Even though he was one of the kindest dogs you would ever meet, he could also be one quite defensive when it came to our family's safety. Whenever a guest would come over, he would not bark, but always closely analyze the person and determine whether he liked them or not. In my opinion, this was one of my favorite things about Drew. One day, coming home from an eventful day at school, I see Drew laying in his normal spot next to a chair in the living room. He looks quite tired and almost drained of energy. As the years pass, I have noticed that he has gradually been slowing down and does not move around as much as he used to. I figure it just has to do with him becoming older and more tired. I let him go outside and get some fresh air and hope that he gets some exercise by doing this. This day had started like any normal day would have, but this day was not a normal day. On this day, our family lost an important member, and it was a very sad moment for all of us. My dad took Drew to the vet, expecting to come home with him that day. Apparently, Drew had been very sick for a long time, which my parents had known about, but my sister and I were unaware. When my dad called for my mom, he told her that Drew would not be coming home because the doctors were going to put him down. My mom wanted to go see him before this happened, but she was told that she would not make it in time. When my mom told me and my sister about it, she left out most of those details. All I recall from that when my mom told me, my heart dropped. I felt an array of different emotions at that very moment. The most predominant emotions being sadness and anger. I wanted to not believe that this was happening and tried convincing myself that this was not real. At the time, it was so difficult for me to understand why this had to happen. I understand now that it was better for Drew because of the suffering he was enduring. When I look back and think about the entirety of this situation, the biggest regret I have is not having any closure with Drew. The only person in our family that had closure with him was my dad because he was the one who took him to the vet. I wish that I could have had said something to Drew before he left, even if at the time it would have been extremely difficult to do. If I could go back to that moment, though, I would make sure to say my goodbyes. My family after this, at least to me, felt kind of empty for a while. Certain things just did not feel the same around the house. We did not get another dog after this. Even though it was discussed and considered, there were plenty of reasons for us not to. For a while, though, we had two goldfish, which filled our small desire for another pet. Despite all the sadness that came with Drew passing away, there were a couple of good things about not having a dog. One of these was that we could now take long vacations or trips without having to worry about getting someone to watch the dog. We also did not have to constantly worry about letting the dog out and cleaning up after him. Lastly, we did not have to worry about the dog hair all around the house and the carpets, because Drew would constantly shed. Even if Even though it was a sad moment, the benefits from not worrying and taking care of a dog took some of the responsibilities off our chest. This was a really big moment in my life because of the fact that I had never experienced anything like it before, and still have not since. In all my life so far, I have not had to deal with a family member or a close friend passing away. Many of my friends and people I know have had to deal with a much greater loss in their lives, and I like to consider myself lucky for not yet experiencing that. Hopefully, I will not go through anything similar to this anytime soon. The entire experience taught me a lot. When I think about it, I take time to reflect on it. One big thing that it taught me was what it feels like to lose someone or something that is precious to you. From that day on, I was able to better understand and sympathize with someone when they would talk about losing a family member or pet. The biggest lesson that I derived from all this, though, was that life is a precious thing, along with the people and things that you have. You should not take any moment with any person or even pet for granted. Even though all of this might sound cliche, it's very true. Take every moment with the people you love and cherish it, because you will regret it if you don't.